Welcome to Melt University. This series will help you build your brand, inform you on a variety of career paths, and introduce you to top executives in sports and marketing. Now, here's your host, the president and CEO of Melt, one of the largest independent sports and event marketing agencies in the country, Vince Thompson.
Welcome back, students of Virtual Melt University. It is the Super Bowl week, the GOAT versus the Prince in Tampa. I know everybody's excited about the game on Sunday, and we have a very, very special guest and fellow Auburn alumni. I had to get that shameless plug in there. McKenna is the Chief Information Officer, the CIO of the NFL. And we are so fortunate and privileged that she has joined us the week of the Super Bowl. As I said, an Auburn University graduate in accounting, has had an esteemed career even prior to the NFL. PricewaterhouseCoopers, MetLife, Disney, the Disney company. We got a lot of great stories about that. Universal, president of Vision Interactive, Constellation Industry, and Energy has been with the NFL nearly 9 years. So, Michelle, welcome to Virtual Melt University. I know our kids are going to enjoy you today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So before we dive into all the glory and the glamour, we love to take it all the way back to childhood, junior high, high school. Where did this passion, that drives you to the top, and going to Auburn to, study accounting, amazing business school down there. But where was this original passion? It would be a tongue in cheek to say you set out to have a career with the NFL, but where did your drive and your passion and how did this get ignited when you got to Auburn?
That's a great question. I do think where you end up does start very young in your childhood as far as what your goals and dreams and what you believe you can accomplish. From, rural Route 1 in small town Alabama to Park Avenue, I'm not sure I ever really dreamed that big, but I definitely was a dreamer. And so it started really with my parents, both of them, really making me believe I could do kind of anything I wanted. And I had an aunt that I lived next door to who was very influential in my life, and I was an avid reader, and she bought like all the encyclopedias for me, and I read like crazy. And she used to say to me, Michelle, you have to get out of here. You know that, right? Like, you can do great things, and not that this isn't a great place, but. And so I think she ignited it in the beginning, what was already there, like a wanderlust, maybe a little bit, for me to go somewhere that I'd never been. And I really had never even been on an airplane until I graduated college, believe it or not. And so, everywhere I'd ever been was because I read about it somewhere. So that's where it got ignited. And then Auburn, just even though it was close to home and it was a lot of friends from high school went there, it still was such a eye opener around people come from all over the world to go to Auburn and study many things, business, engineering. It's a great school. It's an international school. And I feel like, choosing in-state to go to school, I chose the best to open my eyes to what was really, really possible. And so, Auburn offering me so much support along the way. I was able to fuel my love of football there. I got tutored and mentored in football by one of the greats, and Pat Dye. Dr. Gary Waters was a great.
Oh my God, I love him.
And it was his birthday today.
I just wished him happy birthday. Happy birthday, Dr. Waters.
Dr. Waters. He was one of the, first that really believed in me and said, every now and then we get someone that comes along that is like top 1% of 1% of 1%, and you have leadership, like you're smart, but you really are a great leader and you need to go for it. So that's how he put me as president of Accounting Honor Society. And then, that's where it all started. So that's kind of a little bit of the backstory.
Well, and I try to explain this to the students, several things, which I'm sure you appreciate. One, and obviously we're biased, but the Auburn family really is truly a family because of the rural composition of the students. My son's at Georgia, it's fast, Tuscaloosa's fast, and all these places, but the student body, the touch of the professors, and like you, one town, 800 people with a red light. Your school options back then was, are you going to go to Auburn or Alabama? And my parents said, well, you're going to go to Auburn. And I'm like, well, okay. Well, that was pretty much it. I got there. I'm like Forrest Gump. I'm like, I'd never seen this many people, and had a chance encounter with David Housel. And I wanted to be a sports writer and go to Mobile and be a sports reporter. And I said, man, I want to be there. And 4 years, Coach Dye, Bo, Charles, what a, amazing ringside seat, no internet, no Facebook. It was just it was amazing. And then you mentioned the word encyclopedia. For you students that are listening, we actually used to have to go to libraries and get encyclopedias and get source books and get thesauruses and yellow pages too. And they always ask me, what in the heck are those things? But to your point, so as with Auburn, and we talk about this a lot, and we're going to talk about it a little bit more with you, but a minute. But and obviously we're all going through this crazy period with COVID and everything. But the campus was, and still is the greatest professional laboratory that our kids are ever going to be exposed to. And not only can you try a lot of things, but you also can, like you were, the business school and the accounting club and all this kind of stuff and the leadership, but it's where you're beginning to sort of first build your chops and build your resume and build this networking relationship. You mentioned Dr. Waters and the mentoring and all that, but talk to our students about, your philosophy of the campus is the ultimate professional lab, but you're also communicating to employers your initiative.
Yeah, that's great. That's a great question too. I truly believe, and I didn't have anyone to sort of guide me in how to do this when I went to college, because neither one of my parents had been to college. I was the first in my family, extended family, to go. And so I didn't have anyone to tell me, like, here's the kinds of things you need to do. And now I feel like my daughter, she just graduated this past year with an accounting degree from Providence College. And I had so much advice for her that, she launched out of the gate very fast. And so I think for those that, have great role models that have sort of moved on and done well, one of the best things about Auburn is that those people love to come back and they love to help. Never be afraid to ask. Don't think that, that person is so senior or so high in the company, I could never ask them for advice. Like, really, honestly, if we don't have time to stop and talk and help a young person, then what are we doing? And so I feel like most people feel that way, and I know Auburn family feels that way. So the campus is a great laboratory because of all the people that are there, but also all the people that come back. I've been there. I've spoke several times at the business school. I come back regularly. And so do many others, great leaders across the world, everything from top astronauts and actresses, Oscar-winning actresses, to top athletes. There's a lot of great mentorships out there. So then it becomes, how does little old me for me, in my case, Enterprise, Alabama, have access to that? Well, it just takes initiative, honestly, drive, and putting yourself in the right places to meet the right people. And that goes throughout all of life, but particularly for college students. Sure, it's a time to have fun. Sure, it's a time to hang out at your sorority or fraternity and have all those parties and all of that. It's a big part of growing up. But it's also your responsibility to find a place where you can spend your time, with which you build your resume, but you really build your chops around how to talk to people from all walks of life and learn how to network naturally, learn how to find mentors naturally without it being a formal program. And that's how, like, for me, it was athletics. It was working in the athletic department and then I had job studies because I was on financial aid, so I had several jobs. And each one of those jobs working in college, my kids were fortunate enough not to have to work through college,
All right.
but I recommended that they do. Try to work in a campus job if possible somewhere, even if they were just tutoring or they were just an English tutor and my son ended up being an English tutor. And through that English tutoring, he met someone that was a screenwriter from his school
Right.
that he's still in touch with. So, there's lots of, you have to make a plan though. You can't just wait for them to knock on your door.
Bingo.
So it's up to you.
Bingo. And you talk about the relationships, 40 years ago, I'm driving Paul Feinbaum, Dick Vitale, Brent Musburger to the airport, and now I'm doing major sponsorship deals with them. So you don't ever know where these relationships. So you occupy a unique perch on the cutting edge of technology, and we talk ad nauseum about the NFL for many, many reasons: the rights fees they command, the live audiences, the wagering, the fantasy, and all that. But what we've uncovered, we had a brilliant interview with Alan, and and Alan Green, the AD of Auburn. We're uncovering new opportunities for our students, and we know they're going through a lot with COVID. But right now, as you see the world and the world coming out of COVID, and we've data analytics, fanalytics, the CIO of organizations, where you don't necessarily have to be in marketing or sports marketing to have an amazing, obviously you're the poster child for that in professional collegiate athletics, but where do you see these opportunities, and what do our students need to be doing to prepare themselves to enter the world of sports in non-traditional ways where we know this market is evolving?
Yeah, well, you said it, and it's not a knock against a degree in sports management, but honestly, there are so many of those that um, they don't really stand out, to be honest, and the degree is very general. What I find works and what the NFL really hires from is specialized skills that bring to bear things that can be applied to sport. And that means engineers from all walks of life, from all kinds of backgrounds, who end up, maybe not even knowing football when they arrive at the NFL, but they end up running, all our engineering platforms, and our data analytics, our data scientists, really the player health and safety, the safety of the game. These people are, they're also engineers. So business, look, if it comes right down to it, it's a business. Sports is a huge business, and so a business degree, a strong business degree with a background in finance, accounting, understanding the language of business and how that works, is economics. All of those degrees can be very much used in sport. And I think a lot of interns that I've gotten over the years come in and they think because they sort of graduated with a sports management degree,
right,
that they want to know why they're not getting the offers. And so I've sat them down and showed them, like, here's everyone we hired this past year, with 1 to 2 years experience, and they're all from all walks of life and all kinds of degrees. And so I think that, look, sports, I know when I came to the NFL in 2012, we really went through a major revolution in technology, and I ended up hiring, all of my hires none of them had sports backgrounds.
Wow.
And I would say in our marketing department and in our social media and analytics and all of that department, those people are also not coming from a sports background. They're coming from, tech companies. They're coming from, I have a great example. I hired a new person this year. She's very good. She's in, her background is her degree, social media marketing degree. And she realized really quickly, about 3 or 4 weeks into the job, that the real benefit that she was going to be able to add was if she could begin to build the analytics dashboards that will inform things like pricing, and how we do things, in our stadiums, and giving that intelligence back to the clubs versus just being a great marketer. And so now she's going to go back to school for a secondary degree in that. So look, it's a wide open field for really smart people, and it certainly is also a networking field in any sport, as you know from sports. So getting those opportunities to get to know people along the way is very important.
Well, here's a perfect example. Had you and I been having this interview 1 year ago, the definition and the discussion of fan experience pre and post COVID is going to be very different going forward.
Mm-hmm.
Fans will come back, and you got this beautiful Mercedes-Benz Stadium here, and it's the most amazing venue in the country, and other than SoFi and Legion and all that, but even the health and the safety and the protocols of the fans returning is going to create a whole new set of career opportunities for people who have not even thought about careers in sports, wouldn't you say?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've got a great example on that one too. I had an intern this past summer. She was really interested in sports, and she had interned with the Bills in their athletic training. So she wanted to be a trainer,
Mm-hmm.
athletic trainer. And I used her on player health and safety initiatives. She wanted to come back this year, but she was really trying to get back into athletic training, back into the clubs and everything. And she was asking me for advice. And here I am in the middle of discovering these tracing devices that we were going to need to put on everyone. And I said, why don't you try to bend into technology and bring your knowledge of the locker room to this and work on this? Well, now she's going to have a whole career probably in readiness and help in locker rooms. Like locker rooms
Wow.
alone
Yeah.
have been a place for spread of everything forever.
Yeah.
And now it is going to change everything, including the fan experience.
Yeah, and you guys obviously have, we were talking about. I've actually enjoyed watching NFL this fall, even without the fans, because of the sophistication of the broadcast, and like I said, the virtual broadcast and the off-site broadcast, and then I was comparing it to. I was watching Auburn, Georgia playing the other night, and they didn't have the level of production or the fan noise piped in, and it was just a completely different experience. But how you guys have worked to conquer that. And speaking of, one of my favorite stories that I've read about you, and many that I've read about you, but how and people forget this because like the pandemic kind of things hit the fan in March. The NFL draft was coming up in April, and all of a sudden you're tasked with doing like you had 600,000 people in Nashville the year before, and all of a sudden you're doing this virtually. Like, talk about that experience, because I want to hear it myself. I'm such a geek about the draft and everything, but it was fascinating. Like, and it was so, I actually enjoyed it better because you were going into the homes of the families.
Yeah, it ended up being just an amazing social experiment almost,
Right.
because it had not been done before. But yeah, you're right. We were headed to Las Vegas. We had everything done and we're ready to go. And we closed our office, and I looked back on my calendar, and I had a meeting that I had pulled together called Draft Contingencies, because we were starting to hear about this COVID thing.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't know how big it was going to be, but that meeting ended up, it was going to be just me and like 4 or 5 of my tech team to figure out like, how are we going to like set this up? It ended up blowing up into a huge call with like 100 people on it, and all of us just staring at each other like, what the heck are we going to do? Like, this is unprecedented. We really didn't have any time. And then we went from thinking, all right, Las Vegas as a place is not going to happen, but the clubs will still be able to go into their facilities and they'll do their stuff from their facilities, and that's all outfitted and that's cool. And we'll pick a few top draft picks and we'll send
Right.
camera crews to their houses. Well, then that unraveled within 24 hours when everything shut down.
Right.
And so we had very little time to come up with it. And I'd say this is when it really takes that book, everybody's heard of it, Who Moved My Cheese? Well, this is a major moving of cheese because it was such a change that the only way to really get through it was to have one-on-one personal talks with every GM and every head coach to walk them through how this technologically was going to work. And I met with every single GM and every single head coach. Some were very pleasant about it. And I'm happy to say that two of the most pleasant teams are in the Super Bowl. So it pays to be pleasant.
It does.
Then some were not so pleasant. But, you walk them through how it was going to work. And frankly, a lot of the time, I was having to wing it because I didn't know exactly how it was going to work. I just knew we would figure it out. And so we did. We went through all that. But the highlight of it all was the fact that the commissioner got to get to know so many players he would have never known. Not only did he get to welcome them on draft nights, but in the run up to the draft, just making sure they were all set up and everything. I was doing with my team test calls with every prospect. And so they wowould get their setup and I would chit chat with them and they would be nervous and I could see their moms in the background, like telling them to sit up straight or it was real. So Troy Vincent, who's head of football ops, and I told the commissioner about these things and he's like, I'd like to pop into some of them.
Wow.
And so we had opportunities for those kind of moments to happen. And now watching many of those players that went in the draft having major impacts in this season, it was like you got to know them a little personally. And the GMs that were initially resistant around having their families around and being distracted now have said things to me like, I'm always away from my family. It was so nice. I got to share such a special moment with my children, with my spouse, with my partner, with my friends. And we got to see it all live. In the beginning, we used to, we'd have to stay. I had like a big giant screen, as did many others, and we could see every camera everywhere.
Right.
And we'd see them go down, and we'd have to call and remind them to turn them, like, you can't turn the camera off. This is the thing. We have to watch it. And then eventually they forgot they were on. And that's when we got like real great reality television. Like they forgot that they were on. They went about their business and it made for great television, a great draft, and really the first of its kind television production. And it's now been replicated over and over. And our little kit that we made, our little MacGyver kit we put together, has now, the big media companies now have a version of it that is very professional. And I don't think traditional media will ever not have some component of this. So it was really great to be part of something so special.
Well, I just liked the humanization. I like the poignancy, and I like the unscripted moments because, like I said, I've been around student athletes 40 years, and what people don't realize is that, these kids and their families have, they have committed, we've produced a Senior Bowl for many years and all that, is that they have committed so much of their lives. And to see that moment live and unscripted and galvanized, to see their dreams come true. It's not even about the money at that point. And I think that, and I'm interested to see, how you guys, we get to the other side of this, because obviously I know, having it in Vegas and the big places like that, but just that humanization and the sweetness of these kids. And like I said, the unscripted moments and the tears and all that, it's like I said, we were, my sons and I, we watched, like I said, tons of it. And it was just so much fun. And to see the parents too, that was just, because normally in the way you would normally do it, you didn't have the inclusion of all these families and extended family members. And it was just so It was so sweet. And I can think about, as a marketer, so many great sponsorship opportunities that you and I will pursue together in the future, because you were able to loop the families in. But we won't keep you long. But in closing, if somebody's reaching out to Michelle McKenna and knowing, you know, I know what kind of hits my button and what doesn't hit my button, but what are the things that get your attention if somebody's trying to reach out to you through, LinkedIn or somehow they're able to track you down? What gets your attention and provokes you to respond to hundreds of inquiries that you get from people and students each year?
I think I really like it when I get a very specific request, not just, do you have a few minutes? I'd love to talk to you. It's a very specific request. They have something they're interested in. They've already done their homework. One of the worst is, do you have any openings, or do you have any, or when is the intern program? All of which can be found.
Makes me crazy.
Online. So that means you didn't do any research at all.
Bingo.
And you just reached out cold thinking, I'm going to do that for you. No way. Mm-hmm. Right away, now I'm not interested, because if you, or you get your mom or your dad or somebody that you know doing the call saying, can you call my kid? You reach out to me with something specific. And then if your mom and dad happens to know me, have them follow up after you've already done all of the things that everybody else that would take some initiative would do. So very specific request. Include a sample of your work.
Bingo.
Like, if you want to do something specific, put in a sample. Be willing to say, this is what I do. This is what I did. That's how you cut through. But I can tell you, out of the hundreds or thousands I get, I'd say one or two people do that. The rest are all, let's open. When can I apply? Could you, what do you think I should say in an interview? It's like, really? You got to do it. You really own your own career from start to finish, and be bold, be confident. We know that you don't know what we know. My God, we know you're just coming out of college. We don't expect you to, but we do expect you to write well. So if you're not a great writer, have someone read what you wrote. Make sure it's succinct, not rambling, no grammar mistakes, professional, and then people will get back to you.
Well, they're also showing you what type of employee they would be. I tell these kids, it's an audition. Show you're prepared. Show your chops. Show the intangibles. And I'm mind blown because you said that just like I do. It's the rule rather than the exception when a kid will reach out to me and get my attention. And by the way, it's not that difficult to figure out who we are and what, so I'm going to give them the answer to the test as we close this out. If somebody writes Michelle and says, greetings from the boll weevil capital of the world, she's probably going to respond to your email. So for kids, you didn't get the joke. Enterprise is the boll weevil capital of the world. I pass it by on the way to the beach all the time, but I also went to school with a lot of great people from Enterprise. But we know you're busy. It's an honor that you joined us during Super Bowl week. We look forward to meeting you and seeing you at Auburn. We look forward to seeing the product of your work. We're not going to put you on the spot and make a prediction in this Super Bowl because you love all 32 teams equally. But Michelle McKenna, Chief Information Officer of the NFL, great fellow Auburn graduate. What an inspirational story for our students and our listeners, and we hope you get a lot of positive feedback. We're sure you will. And thank you so much for joining Virtual Melt University.
Thank you. War Eagle.
War Eagle.
Thanks, Vince. We hope you've enjoyed today's virtual class. We'll be back soon with a new edition of Melt University 2021.